So for those who might be just getting introduced to this body of work, I just want to talk first about the first book. What was the impact of the original Decolonizing Wealth book on you, on philanthropy, on the world? What happened? What of that did you expect? What was unexpected? What happened after that book came out in 2018?
Well, so much has happened. It almost feels like a lifetime ago. But when I wrote the book, for me, it was a personal healing journey. I had been through a lot as an Indigenous person working in these very white, dominant, privileged spaces around money and wealth. And I think at a certain point in time, I got a little bit disillusioned about that. Like, is this even the place where I should be working? Money is bad, it's evil, like trying to do good with it. Is this even my calling or my gift? And so writing the book for me was really an act of trying to find healing in myself. And I journaled a lot. I got shared all these painful stories. And then I had to really think about, okay, if this is a book, I have to have a solution. So and I had a writing coach who was like, okay, you're just another person who wants to be critical of their workplace, right? So, what is really different in the world? What can you tap into to reimagine how this sector and how people use money and wealth differently? And that was a soul searching journey for me. And I'm so honored that Donna, my elder, is here today because she was definitely on that journey, a stop that I made, who reminded me that this was my calling, and actually helping to redistribute wealth was my passion and my medicine. And so when the book came out in 2018, I kind of held my breath, honestly. I didn't know what would happen. I was pretty sure my mom would buy 10 copies and my friends would buy some. But I had a lot of fear at that time because what I was saying and writing in this book was taboo to even mention, to even criticize this industry of philanthropy, $1 trillion of assets. To speak against that or to even critique it in any way was just like not something we did in this industry. And to absolutely bring in the history of colonization and to name white supremacy as a function of the dysfunction in this industry was something that I didn't hear people talking about. And so I'm really honored and that the book hit when it did and that it was received so well. And I was telling Donna this morning, there were so many people before me who had planted seeds and had been pushing and had been resisting and disrupting in their own ways at different times that maybe they couldn't do it as vocally or as public as I did. But there's been work for generations now to really disrupt and to call out how capital was flowing through systems or not flowing into communities of color, and that needs to change. So since the book came out, it really we've been invited to speak in so many places. I was telling someone this morning, I think last year we spoke to like 50,000 people on Zoom. So there's an appetite for truth. There's an appetite to get to the bottom of why we have the disparities in this country and globally around race. We've been invited to advise institutions, even conservative institutions, people that you might be surprised to hear, to really talk about the origins of wealth and where money came from and how they could take on the opportunity to right the wrongs. We've seen institutions like the Bush Foundation do the work to explore and how they've benefited as an institution of wealth by having money and how the accumulated advantages for them have just created more divide between the wealth and people in poverty, and they committed to giving 10% of the equivalent of 10% of their endowment back in the form of reparations, which is $100 million. So, I think that this book and this work and the people before me have catalyzed an era of reckoning, of truth telling, of being honest, it's like a big mirror has been held up before this industry to really understand like how we've been problematic in the process and how we've been complicit in the way things have been, and to really reimagine radically redistributing wealth, not just making grants to people of color. That is the minimum that foundations should be doing, but to actually redistribute wealth, masses and masses of it, to make up for the generations of lost time where we haven't had opportunities to build wealth. So it's been beautiful. It's been quite a ride. We've seen people meet at our events who are now married. So if you're single and you're here, you never know what could happen. We have seen people have come up to me and said that that the writing literally has saved their lives, their marriages, because there's just something when you are holding pain inside and you are internalizing microaggressions, or you're seeing the world through a different lens that is not the white dominant way of seeing it, that begins to tear away at your soul. And so I think that for me, what's really special in the book is that many people felt seen and heard and connect as like, oh, okay, this is, I'm not the one that's messed up. The world is messed up, or these institutions are messed up. And that movement is now transcending philanthropy into a lot of other sectors and spaces, and even globally now. So it's been so amazing. So amazing.
It's incredible to hear. Getting married, impressive, $100 million, amazing, all the things. And also, I think what you speak about in the book is that it was your own need for healing that made you turn to healing yourself, which has now made you a healer and has invited other people into this journey. So tell us about the second edition. What is new in this? What's exciting? And why is it even more relevant now?
There's lots of updates to the book. We have a new forward. My first forward was by Jennifer and Peter Buffett. This forward is by Bishop William Barber, who is from North Carolina. I'm very proud of where I'm from, in case y'all hadn't picked up on that today. I love me some North Carolina. Um, and so he's just such a spiritual force for good in the world. And so I'm honored that he wrote for the book. We also added new chapters because, as I was sharing, how the work of decolonizing wealth and the idea of like healing and bringing that framework into institutions has transcended philanthropy. I've met with so many corporations, the entertainment industry, so many different places where folks are wondering, like, what have we done as an institution in this country to harm communities, and what do we need to do to repair that? And so I share that beyond money, like other forms of wealth, like storytelling, which more and more I'm realizing that that's just a superpower to be able to tell a story. I didn't know really that I had that until I wrote a book, and it was like the power of that story has like shifted hearts and minds in a narrative. And so I think, the entertainment industry and creators and the arts and culture space, there's just so much opportunity to use that power to like shift, bend this arc towards justice. And so I share those stories and those examples in the book, as well as just like all the things that have happened in 3 short years where, honestly, the Bush Foundation example that I gave, when I said that all foundations in the country should take 10% of their endowments and just hand it over to people of color in the form of reparations, I never really thought anybody would do it, y'all. Like, I just was trying to like spark a different imagination. But people are doing that, and other foundations have said, we've read the book, we decided to liquidate our assets and just hand the money over to communities of color. So I feel like there was just such a timing before the murder of George Floyd, where this new spark of consciousness kind of hit some folks for the first time. Within philanthropy, we were ready to respond as an industry to liberate a lot of more money toward racial justice than has been given in the past. Not enough, but more than has happened in the past. So I wanted to share those examples, that this is not just a pie in the sky, indigenous magic and imagination, although it's totally that, but it's also like this can be done and it's practical and people are doing it, and there's really no other way out. If we want to save this planet, if we want to bridge these racial divides that we have in this country, if we want to heal and repair ourselves from the last like 4 years of like terror that we were under politically, the only way out of that is first to all heal. And I'm just such an evangelist for healing because I found my healing and I didn't know that I was a healer. And I talk about that in the book. And meeting with V and, knowing that he was a healer and actually understanding that I have medicine in my own way and that I'm giving out medicine and helping others heal all the time. We're all broken, y'all. We all have pain and trauma. And the only way for me to heal my own is to work on myself and to kind of help others on their journey. So I think if we can all take on that identity as healers, then the world will be just a much better place.
So I want to quote you. Your passion for healing is reminding me how you open this book from your healing mentor, Beyonce.
Yes.
If we are going to heal, let it be glorious.
That's right.
I feel like that just summarized all of that.
If you don't read the book, just that quote is all you need.
Right. So, a big part of healing, as you're talking about, is reparations. If we're talking about the 7 steps of acknowledging harm, to repair, to investing, to healing, this conversation around reparations has also gained a lot of traction in recent times. And I know it's a big focus for the Decolonizing Wealth project to really think about reparations for Black and Brown communities. Do you want to say more? One foundation has surprised you, but do you want to just share anything more about what you see as possible now, that it's not just an imagination, a bold idea, a provocative spark, but an actualization, and this moment we're in, right? This reckoning and this moment we're in. The circumstances have shifted where something different is possible now that wasn't 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah, I am a major advocate for reparations and for the returning of land to indigenous people, because Donna kind of said this in her comments earlier. Everything is connected to money. It just is. Money is like this proxy, this symbol, this thing that's almost not real, almost imaginary. We made it up as people, as a symbol. But colonization and slavery, all these horrific things that have happened in our country's history, all go back to this hoarding of resources and money. And so for me, it's the way out of that is to think about using money differently as medicine. But to repair that, we've got to use money as a part of that repair process. So we need truth, we need reconciliation, and we need reparations. We are not going to close the race wealth gap that exists right now, where we as indigenous people and Black families in this country have like pennies or less than pennies to the dollar of white folks, because of the history of very intentional public policies that were created that prohibited us from building wealth in this country. And so poverty is the product of those public policies, and it's the product of theft. And so the way that we repair that is that we give back what was taken. We give the land back, and we give back money and the wealth that was built on the backs of Black people in this country. And so I'm so excited because I felt like 3 years ago, people, and there always have been people talking about reparations, but it wasn't as dominant as a conversation as we're hearing now. And a big part of that is thanks to people in this room who write about race and power and wealth, and the journalists that are here. And we're at a point in our time where I think that the need for healing is so clear. After January the 6th, if you didn't think we needed racial healing in this country, after those terrifying events, it's so clear, and I just don't see a way to racial healing without paying back and fixing the harm. And reparations is moving away from being this word that is triggering and scary or whatever for folks to actually a beautiful word. Again, I think a role for people in this room who write, who are storytellers, who are culture influencers, we have the opportunity to reshape that narrative. Repair is just such a beautiful thing, right? Like to repair a relationship, to repair a bridge that is broken, like anything that is broken to fix it. So, HR 40 is currently moving through Congress, and this is a bill that people have fought for 30 years. 30 years, and this is as far as it's ever gotten, so it feels within reach. Our organization has launched what I believe to be the first ever fund to support reparations movement building in this country. We're about to announce 1st of September about $1.9 million in grants that will support Black-led organizing, Indigenous-led organizing to return wealth and to return land to our communities. And so when we put out the RFP for that, I was like, I knew reparations work was happening. We got in like 93 proposals from every state in this union, including Alaska, including Puerto Rico as well. It just, there's work happening on the ground. There's work happening at the state level, and there's a national movement for reparations in this country. So I think it's beautiful. I think it's timely, and we're ready for this. We also must have truth and reconciliation, right? It's not about just cutting the check. We also have to fight back on, the attack on truth that we're experiencing right now, how they want to take critical race theory out of the classroom, right? These are all strategies to really perpetuate white supremacy. And, so there are some who are in favor of, well, let's pay reparations, but we're not going to teach this anymore. We need all of that. We have to have the truth. We have to have reconciliation, and we have to pay for what we've done and right those wrongs. And reparations is the way.
That's right. And the land back part, which is so key to it, I want to really quote another one of those, did you imagine this would happen? Not really, but it happened. But if you're really committed to healing and you own land, you can give it back. There are those who say that using the term decolonization for anything less than the full repatriation of indigenous land and life is counterproductive. As extreme as this may sound, after the first edition of Decolonizing Wealth came out, this exact scenario happened. People began contacting me and asking me to take gifts, not just of money, but of land and properties worth millions and millions of dollars, and to get them into Native hands. I didn't even know how to accept and redistribute these kinds of gifts, but I've had to learn. Will you say more about that?
Yeah, I'm still learning. We absolutely, I think this spirit of giving back and repairing is just something that's resonating. And for white people with wealth that we've worked with, where we've had these conversations, who have gotten to the point of wanting to right the wrongs of their ancestors, to find their own liberation from that history, they are the happiest people that I know, and they want to give back. And giving back is happening right now, not just in incredible philanthropic cash gifts, but also in land. And people are more and more acknowledging the importance of land to Indigenous people as a form of wealth. It is, as Charlie said, Mother Earth for us it is our everything, like our connection to place and the land, and that was forcibly taken from us through the Indian Removal Acts, and of course the Indian boarding schools and all the things that were happening. And so there's a reconnection to our mother, and there's movements happening across the country to make that happen. And some of them are like land transfers and giving land back to tribal communities. Some of it is like in Alameda County, California, where they just passed a land tax. So people living there are paying tax on the land that will go back to the indigenous communities there, acknowledging that historical ownership. Well, we don't like to use that word ownership in our communities, but it was the land that we occupied and stewarded. And the movements to actually return that feels so right and so necessary, and it's happening. And so, yeah, our team is quickly learning how to even handle people who want to make those kind of wealth transfers. And so it's a moment. It's really a moment. It's really powerful.
Sure is. And how can the folks in the room, the media sector, journalists, storytellers, continue to further and support the movement for healing and reparations?
I think there's such a powerful role for folks to play in this room. As Carlos said earlier, journalists, writers, storytellers are like the conscience of this country, and are the truth tellers. And we've seen lately how journalists like Nicole Hannah Jones, how our university treated her. because there's a fear of the truth, and we've seen truth being under attack for the last several years. So to be the folks to hold up truth and to hold up the mirror to the conscience of this country, to reflect our soul back to us, to be a part of shifting the narrative, and to being a part of elevating voices that haven't been heard, who have been marginalized, and actually know exactly what is needed to get us out of this mess is such a critical, important role. And so I think I encourage everyone who is a writer to think about your writing and your reporting as medicine, as a gift, as a way to repair what's broken by being committed to telling the truth and to sharing your platform with those voices who are being that the world is trying to silence. So such an important role, such an important role.
Thank you for that, for all of your own healing through storytelling and bravely telling the truth in a way that was also loving and pointing to solutions, and also while naming the colonizer virus, which is not easy to name and not easy for many to hear. But it has created the transformative openings that we're now, many of us, sort of like moving through. So thank you all for doing that work with your own medicine. And then lastly, I just want to ask, what keeps you doing this work? You know, you speak about integrity in this book in this really beautiful way, that it's not just about telling the truth, but it's about bringing your whole self wherever you go. It's about bringing your heart and being able to be present no matter what room you're in, and being your whole self. What keeps you doing that and being your whole self when you're trying to move hundreds of years old of like institutions worth of white supremacy and the colonizer virus?
You know, that's a great question. I know I do this work out of obedience to my ancestors, and for my people. I want my people to be free. I want my people to be healed from trauma that is so recent and keeps happening. Y'all have heard the stories about the Indian boarding schools, and I'm from a county where we are, at one point we were the third poorest county in the nation. I don't know our current stats, but the fact that there are people here in this room from our county, like doing this fancy event, is like pretty spectacular because it's just that dire there. And it's, the desire for justice and fairness and opportunity for my people keep me going. I've also tasted healing. I've tasted freedom and liberation, and once you taste and see that it's good, that you want that for everybody. So that keeps me going every single day because I haven't always been the Edgar that you see before you. I was raised in an evangelical, right-wing, very conservative situation. I was raised to be racist. I was raised to be sexist, raised to be homophobic, all the xenophobias. And I've been on such a long journey for my 40 plus years to unlearn that. And there's been so much grace that's been extended to me and so much education. And now I'm all enlightened. And I don't want to get self-righteous and comfortable in that. I want to bring other people along on that journey because it's so much better on this side. It's so like on the side of love, on the side of freedom, on the side of liberation. So I just want that for everybody. That keeps me going.
Thank you so much. I have to ask because I think you talk about this, that you haven't always been this person and haven't always been this way, this woke, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's who we have to be for the people who come after us, and to not be judgy and self-righteous and write people off and be too lefty and all of that. So I both really appreciated that, and also the joy of having tasted freedom and all of that. So one last tidbit. What is the tastiest healing you've ever tasted?
Oh my goodness. Oh, the tastiest food. I think for me personally, it's just really uh, arriving into accepting myself. Like I think we all, especially people of color, women, other marginalized groups, right, queer people, we internalize so many messages that we're not the right thing, right? Like we're not the standard of beauty, we're not the standard. I can go back to grad school days, and remembered at Chapel Hill, my advisor said, I'm worried about you and the career path you're choosing. I was going to go into hospital administration. It's very conservative, and, you know, they wear the wingtip shoes and the suits all the time. And so, you know, it's always feeling like I don't fit in. I'm in this other box. But getting to the point where I finally, after all the years, understand that being so comfortable and actually being different is the thing that makes it all special, right? Like after trying to be the other thing and all the code switching, I went to speech lessons trying to lose my Southern accent, like all the things to like whitewash myself, to be free from that and be like, you know what you see is what you get. This is who I am, and it's actually good, right? That is like a freedom of self-acceptance and love that I love, that I have for myself now. So it takes a while to get there, a lot of work, and it's a daily struggle because we still internalize these messages, right? We flipping through the magazines, we're on the Instagram, and it's like, will my body ever look like that? You know, how much do I have to go to the gym, right? But just being so comfortable in my own skin is really great. It's really the tastiest healing that I've experienced.
Yay.
I'm tasty.
Thank you, Edgar. Thank you for all of the self-love and healing that brings you here and brings such heart into this book and such healing into the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitika. Thanks, y'all.